I'm so pleased to be able to introduce our next speaker here at SaaSmetrics Palooza 24. He was a speaker at the inaugural Palooza in 2022, one of the 3 highest ranked sessions that we had. So not to put any pressure, but here is Scott Stouffer, founder and CEO of scaleMatters, to talk about how to operationalize go-to-market data to improve your SaaS metrics. Welcome, Scott.
Ray, thanks for having me, and congratulations on the continued success of this event. I think it's become a very important resource for a lot of people, so I appreciate you doing this. All right, so let me jump into it. I'm Scott Stouffer. I'm CEO of scaleMatters, and my talk today is titled How to Operationalize Your Go-to-Market Data to Improve Your SaaS Metrics. Kind of a mouthful, but I could have also titled it something like a methodology for turning your crummy CRM data into an extraordinarily powerful tool so you can actually answer the questions you need to be able to answer to drive profitable growth. Anyway, my company, scaleMatters, is a boutique RevOps shop. We specialize in helping VC and PE-backed companies achieve efficient growth by leveraging best-in-class go-to-market data and analytics. And over our history, we've developed a fairly simple yet elegant framework, or a methodology, if you will, for transforming the posture of our customers' go-to-market data and analytics. And what I plan to do today is basically share that framework with you so that you can actually apply it in your own business and try to get your data to a much better state of actionability. And for any of you who are interested, we'd be happy to share a template with you after the fact that actually helps you execute the framework. So we have an entire 2-day virtual conference, SaaSmetrics Palooza, dedicated to the topic of SaaS metrics, some of which are shown on this slide. These metrics, when defined and measured consistently, they provide a picture of the overall health and the performance of a SaaS business. So the question is, how do you actually improve them? Another speaker at this event, Dave Kellogg, once wrote a blog article about the importance of senior executives being able to answer the question, whatever question is asked of them. Well, that's really the reason that metrics and analytics exist, which is to allow senior execs to answer questions. SaaS metrics answer the what. In other words, what is the overall health and performance of a SaaS business? Historically, it's primarily been boards and investors that have demanded these metrics, which help them to decide, do we continue to support the company, to continue to invest in it? Do we continue to support the leadership team, et cetera? Go-to-market operational analytics, on the other hand, answer the why behind the what. And it's understanding the why, or the root cause, that allows leadership to take informed action to improve outcomes. But done well, go-to-market operational analytics also answers the what if. Because if you have great operational data, that data can inform high precision models, which then allow leadership teams to do scenario planning and what if modeling in order to understand, if we push this lever, what's likely to be the outcome versus if we push on this other lever. This is predictability at its finest. So you can think of SaaS metrics as there to report on performance, while operational analytics are there to improve performance. And companies that are really good at this stuff, they do in fact achieve markedly better performance, whether that's improving ROI on marketing spend, increasing sales productivity, or just identifying non-productive spend and eliminating it. And it's easy to imagine how these performance improvements translate to increased valuations. Now, we primarily deal at my company with growth stage and mid-market B2B companies, B2B businesses. And in our experience, most of them are doing an okay job at reporting on the basic SaaS metrics, though the process of pulling them together is often quite painful. But the vast majority of the businesses we see, they suffer mightily when it comes to go-to-market operational analytics and having data be a legitimate tool to help senior leadership take actions that actually will improve performance. So let's take a look at why this is. So we refer to the current state analytics at most of these growth stage and mid-market organizations as passive reporting, but it also could be called reactive reporting. In other words, it's not very actionable stuff. So first of all, most of these businesses have not really instrumented their environment in order to produce the necessary data to answer the questions they need to be able to answer. The tech has been often poorly configured because it was set up by people who are not experts in tech, often maybe a SDR who got promoted, showed interest in technology and got promoted to become the RevOps person. Processes often don't exist, which would otherwise cause necessary information to be captured. So at the core of this, why these companies struggle with this, is they aren't measuring the right stuff. Secondly, the data is often siloed. It's siloed between sales and marketing and CS, and it makes it very difficult to get this holistic picture of what's going on. And this is often the result of the fact that organizationally, no single senior executive owns the responsibility for data across the entire customer journey, which is one of the reasons we're starting to see more and more boards put that responsibility onto a CFO or possibly a COO. On top of that, most of these businesses are plagued with data hygiene issues, which completely undermines the value of any analytics. Thirdly, while these growth stage and mid-market companies have hundreds of reports and dashboards typically, they've rarely been designed in a way that makes it easy to draw insights from. So companies talk to us all the time about having a ton of data, but none of it being actionable. And as a result, senior leaders are effectively left to act on gut and intuition. And even the most experienced of us with plenty of gray hair won't always get it right. And our actions often make the situation worse because of unintended consequences. Now let's contrast that with what we think of as designing for actionability. We have a methodology internally for designing for actionability. We call it data drives action. And it has proven to be very effective in transforming data into a useful tool for senior leadership teams. I'm basically going to walk you through that framework or methodology now so that you can apply it to your own business. We start by considering the outcome, which is the set of all possible actions one might take to improve go-to-market performance, right? We want actionable data. Let's focus on the actions we might think about taking. Well, clearly there are dozens, if not hundreds, of actions one can take, but in this framework, we've synthesized them into a handful of categories or buckets of actions. For example, you might take actions to change people, such as coaching, training, maybe even terminating. You might take actions to streamline processes with the goal of shortening sales cycles or perhaps improving conversion rates. Or maybe you might take some actions to change channels, perhaps by reallocating investment away from one channel, such as, outbound prospecting, in favor of maybe a different channel, such as LinkedIn advertising, let's say, and so on. So there's these buckets of possible actions you might take. By knowing the possible actions you could take, we then ask ourselves, what insights do I need to have that would compel me to take one action over another? Said another way, what questions do I need to be able to answer to inform my actions? Identifying these key business questions is a critical part of this methodology. In product development vernacular, you can think of the business questions as the requirements that need to be met with the design of our data and analytics. The next step after identifying the insights or the key business questions is to translate that into what data is needed and how does it need to be presented in order to readily answer those key business questions. And then the final step in the methodology is to identify how that data is going to be sourced, right? We know what data we need. Now, where are we going to get it? And it's typically through a combination of instrumenting the tech, in other words, configuring the GTM tech so that it measures certain things and produces certain data sets, but also implementing processes which capture the necessary data. This methodology, what we call data drives action, but it's fairly just a very logical approach. It's super effective for achieving actionable data. And it's super effective because by starting with the end outcome, which is performance improving actions, and reverse engineering back to the tech and processes, we ensure that there's a complete linkage that creates actionable data. So let's get into this a little bit deeper, and we'll look at a specific example of how this works. Remember, we start by identifying all the possible actions that can be taken to improve performance. In this example, we're going to consider actions to change channels. And when we say channels, we're referring to the channels or the strategies a company uses to source prospective customers. Channels might include things like paid search advertising, paid LinkedIn advertising, outbound SDR prospecting, events and trade shows, community sponsorships, as well as partners. And when we talk about actions to change channels, we would most likely be talking about increasing or decreasing investment in certain channels so that we are more heavily investing in our most productive channels and moving investment away from the least productive channels. So that's the actions we're considering, right, is increasing or decreasing investments in different channels. So what insights would we need that would then compel us to move money into one channel and take money away from another? Well, we would need to know relative ROI on a channel basis, assuming that efficiency was an important priority for us, which, of course, for most companies these days, it is the priority. If growth was the predominant priority, we would need to know which channels were the most scalable and had the greatest upside so we could throw more dollars at it and accelerate our growth. If we had a balanced approach between efficient growth, then we would probably want to know which channels sort of had the best profile of both scalability and efficiency, right? Or perhaps we're very nervous about near-term results. We want to make sure we boost those. We're getting ready to do fundraising or something. And we would want to know which channel mix would be most optimal for maximizing near-term results. As I mentioned before, getting these questions right, this is a critical part of the methodology because it really sets the stage for the instrumentation and analytics. So these are the set of questions we need to be able to answer to inform whether we're going to change investment levels in the various channels that we're doing. By being crystal clear on these questions that you need to be able to answer, it makes it fairly straightforward to define what data is needed and how should it be presented to most easily answer the questions. The presentation or design of how the data is reported is critical, and this is what makes it easy to draw insights from data. As an example, here is a dashboard which is designed to help answer the very specific question of what channels have the best ROI. And though it might be difficult to see here, the data is organized to look at relative value of an opportunity by channel, as well as relative value of a lead by channel. And we can see, for example, you might not be able to see it on this Zoom, but we can see that the value of a high intent lead through paid search is close to $1,000, while the value of a high or low intent lead through paid search is only $297, and the value of a low intent lead through LinkedIn is only $25. So clearly, for this particular company, paid search and focused on high intent action CTAs tends to be the most lucrative approach that they have. And you can't see the rest of this dashboard, but combined with the other charts on this dashboard, it makes it really easy for the revenue leader or analyst to draw conclusions about relative channel ROI and take actions to double down on the good ones and kind of terminate the investments in the lower productive channels. So let's go back to the required data to answer the questions. We need full funnel analytics to answer ROI and scalability questions. This includes volume metrics, conversion rate metrics, as well as cycle time metrics. An example of full funnel analytics is here, where this company, their full funnel is, as this is for acquisition, is leads turn into meetings set turn into meetings held turn into pipeline opportunities, and some portion of those convert into deals. What you can see here is a relative comparison of the full funnel analytics on a channel basis. Presenting data in this fashion makes it very easy. Again, it's full funnel, but it's presented in such a fashion which makes it very easy to compare the relative productivity of one channel versus another. So let's go back to that. In addition to full funnel analytics, we need cost data. Right? If we're going to know ROI, we need to have cost data, and that we need to be able to attribute costs to different parts of the funnel for each channel, top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. And we need NRR data attributed by channel. So now we've identified the data that we need, as well as how it should be presented to improve actionability. And by the way, up until this point in this whole process or methodology, this work can be done by people on the leadership team and or a go-to-market analyst. The last step then is determining how we are going to source that data and ensure sufficient hygiene so the data is even worth analyzing. And this is where a go-to-market analyst teamed with a go-to-market tech architect are really required to put the meat on the bones. It's during this stage of the methodology that you're going to need to get very detailed about what objects, fields, layouts, automations in the CRM need to be touched and how. You'll also need to be clear on specific integrations between the CRM and other tech that are necessary to produce the required data, including how to ingest the necessary cost data from the financial systems. And it's during this stage where you may need to implement new processes to ensure proper data capture. For example, we recently helped a customer implement a deal certification process where finance ended up with the responsibility for moving opportunities to closed won. And this process change that got implemented immediately fixed this problem they had of inconsistent data between the CRM and the ERP. And it's because the sales team, when they finally get a deal done, they'd get the contract signed, but they wouldn't go back and update the data in the CRM. And so the customer of ours had a very hard time, looking at CRM data and actually being able to draw conclusions from it because it just wasn't accurate. So anyway, you get the sense. We start with the outcomes, which is the actions. We say, what insights do I need to have? What questions do I need to be able to answer to take certain actions? What data do I need to have to answer those questions? And then how do I actually get that data through process and tech? So this methodology, again, has proven to be very effective across a number of organizations, and it is effective because it is undeniable in how it connects data to actions. So this stuff works. Let me give you 2 case studies. When you get your go-to-market data to a state of true actionability, performance will definitely improve. Take the case of a $40 million SaaS provider of customer success platform. They were experiencing a significant decrease in win rate. And with the relatively immature data they had, they thought it was due to an overall softening of macro conditions, and macro conditions were softening. But they thought it was primarily due to that, combined with the fact that their newer sales cohorts were really struggling. And so, as their actions, they basically considered terminating the new sales cohorts and just battening down the hatches on expenses in general to basically withstand the soft macro conditions. Well, after working with them to get their go-to-market data and analytics in a better state, it became apparent that the primary cause of the declining win rate was that marketing had recently started over-indexing on SMB leads. And those SMB leads were not ICP, right? They were outside of ICP and therefore converted much more poorly than non-SMB leads. And it so happened that the newer sales cohorts were disproportionately handed the SMB leads to work. So the problem that they thought was macro conditions and, poorly ramped salespeople was really a customer selection ICP issue. And as a result, the company they got very disciplined, redirected its top of funnel investments back to truly ICP targets. And the win rate doubled within 2 quarters, literally. Now, just imagine if you were able to double your win rate, right? What does that do for growth and valuation? So let's take a look at one more example of how solid go-to-market operational analytics can have a major impact on outcomes. This company is a $15 million SaaS provider of local marketing platforms, so their customers are local businesses, roofing companies, home services companies, pool service companies, etc. They had started experimenting with Facebook advertising, and they saw a terrific correlation between spend and leads. And they thought they had finally found the holy grail, right? Found a scalable sourcing strategy. And so they began to double down on the Facebook ad spend, and they pulled their SDRs off of prospecting in order to service the rapidly increasing number of leads coming from Facebook. But what happened? Leads went up, costs went up because they were investing more in Facebook ads, but their bookings/revenue were in fact decreasing. So here again, by helping them get their data into a better state of actionability, and particularly in this case, using full funnel analytics, what the data actually showed was that SDR prospecting was a much more productive channel for them than Facebook advertising because the Facebook leads converted so poorly. In fact, the data showed that it cost them $22,000 to acquire a customer via Facebook ads, compared to $5,000 to acquire a customer through traditional old school SDR cold calling, a difference of more than 4x. And part of the reason the Facebook acquired customers were so expensive is because they were applying expensive SDR and AE resources on working a whole bunch of leads that just weren't converting. So once they had this data, they basically redirected their efforts toward prospecting and away from Facebook. And literally within 4 months, their bookings were up 6x. So the moral of the story here is that the decisions you make and the actions you take do in fact matter for better or for worse. And the more knowledge and understanding you can have, the more likely you are to make good decisions and take productive actions. You need to get your go-to-market operational data right. Valuation and perhaps even viability depend on it. So thanks for your time. Hopefully you found this helpful as a way to think about how to get more actionable go-to-market data in your own organization to drive better performance. We're happy to give you the full template for our Data Drives Action framework. It'll definitely save you some time since we've already thought through all of this stuff. Just reach out to me if you'd like it at Scott@scaleMatters, and I'll send it your way. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your day, but I'll first see if I have any questions from Ray.
We sure do. Boy, I remember a long, long time ago, about 3 to 4 years ago, when revenue operations was supposed to be the organization that looked across acquisition, retention, expansion, efficacy, across marketing, sales, and customer success, unify the data, gain those insights, and be able to, quote unquote, be the canary in the coal mine to say, this particular portion of GTM is not working, and if we fixed it, here's how we'd see it. But, Scott, it hasn't worked. The promise of revenue operations has not been met. Why not?
I would argue a couple things. And first of all, I completely agree with you. And I'm going to liken it to the promise of the CRO title has also not been met. We have a case where words have gotten hijacked. The CRO title was initially meant to be the unifying executive across all the entire customer journey. It has now become the glorified title for the head of sales and sometimes customer success. So companies still haven't made a single executive own the responsibility of the full life cycle. And so what would happen is, or 2 years ago, or even still, RevOps is now a glorified title for sales ops, because what we often see in most companies, RevOps reports to the CRO, and then there's a marketing ops person under marketing, right? So it's just organizations have failed to step up to drive alignment, and you cannot get alignment without forcing it at the org chart level. And one of the things that pleases me about the fact that there's a lot of CFOs as audience for this event, that's what I mentioned earlier. We're seeing more and more CFOs step up and become the strategic generator of alignment, and they're saying, look, I have to be able to answer this stuff to boards. And if you sales head and marketing head and CS head are continue to, use data, for CYA purposes and to attack each other, I'm going to take ownership of this go-to-market data. And so that's definitely a trend. I mean, it can't possibly happen fast enough, but we're beginning to see it. But the short answer was organizations haven't forced the alignment to happen. And boards as well. PE a little better, but VC, first thing they do when they make an investment, we're going to get a CRO, and it's a glorified great salesperson, right? So they're just missing the opportunity to say alignment is job number one that will drive efficient growth.
Hot take here, and most of our audience, 50% CFOs, 25% COs, about 20% go-to-market leaders. But here's my hot take, and I want you to tell me whether you think this will help. CEOs need to believe and act like they own go-to-market alignment and partnership with the CFO, who's going to own the data, which is aligned to their key performance metrics that the board wants. And I think if they are the two people who own it, and they use their GTM leaders as their lieutenants to execute it, I think you have better outcomes. What say you to that hot take?
100%. Now, I think it's somewhat size dependent, right? At some point, companies may actually have a CRO that owns the entire revenue cycle, and then a head of sales, a head of marketing, a head of CS under them, and in that case, the RevOps and the data ownership, et cetera, could make sense to be under that person. But if they don't, from an executing perspective, CEO has to own it. And from a data and analytics and information perspective, I think CFO has to own it. Because, this is what they're used to doing, right? It's FP&A work applied to go-to-market.
I totally agree. Hot take. And it's not just financial operations that's working closely with the RevOps, sales art, marketing ops. It's an umbrella, holistic strategy that the CFO can really drive. That's at least food for thought for the audience, I believe.
Yeah, I agree. And it impacts product too. Right? Everyone's part of revenue these days.
Well, I always said revenue generation is a team sport. That's the entire executive teams. Scott Stouffer, founder, CEO of ScaleMatters. Thank you so much for speaking here at SaaS Metrics Palooza and providing some thought-provoking concepts.
Ray, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. See you next year.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye.